This is a quick reminder, like always, that despite the fact that I make things from cartoons and video games, this video, as well as all videos on my channel, is not intended for a younger audience. 16 on up is my targeted age range. Thanks!
I know. What did I say in the last video? That there was going to be only 2 parts to this cosplay build. So, what does the title mean? 1.5. Well, it's simple. I'm currently waiting on something to come in the mail that unfortunately won't come for another month, and that is going to be used to build the sleeves and the shoes. So, I unfortunately have to wait for that. The belt, however, has been made for about a month now, and all the footage is on my computer. So I thought, you know what? Let me just go ahead and release a 1.5 part showing the belt, just the belt itself. So yeah, on to the video.
So before I started making the belt, I made this drawing to see what I wanted it to look like before I started to just make it. And I also needed to see how many gems I may have needed. Altogether, I made 9, 6 for the belt, 2 for the sleeves, and 1 for the brooch to hold the cloak closed. While I did make 6 gems for the belt, I only ended up needing 4, not including the bird charm. How I made them was I used my Black Magic foam clay, but you can use any air dry clay or even Play-Doh could work, and 2 different size candles. I used the bigger one for the gold parts and the smaller one for the red parts. However, for the 2 gems that would be on the sleeves, I used the top of the smaller candles for the gold parts and the bottom for the red parts for those. Because if I tried to make them the same size as for the belt and the brooch, it was going to be far too big on my wrists. For the bird charm, I knew I wasn't going to be able to sculpt it by hand, so like you just saw, I sketched out the design that I wanted on a piece of paper before cutting it out. The reason for that being I was going to tape it to a piece of cardboard, cut out that shape on cardboard, and then cover it in my clay. Feel free to use the drawing you just saw as a template if you want to make this same pattern too. However, keep in mind that depending on the clay that you use, it may warp it because it'll be on cardboard and the clay will shrink and bring the cardboard with it. That's what mine did. It wasn't too bad, but you could clearly tell when they were laying it flat that the charm was warped compared to the other gems. However, on the belt, it's really not that noticeable. After waiting about a week for all of them to dry properly, I went ahead and coated them in just one layer of Mod Podge, front, back, and side, before following the same thing with white paint. The Mod Podge was to make sure that the paint didn't get absorbed and dry weirdly on the clay. And then the white was to make sure that when I went to paint them their correct colors, it actually popped. Considering that I'm using a dark colored clay, I didn't want the colors to be muted in any way. Depending on the color clay that you use though, you may not have to paint yours white to start off with. As you can tell in the beginning, the gold paint that I ended up using was not the best. It was a brand that I had never used before called Folk Flirt in their metallic colors, 660 pure gold. Whenever I bought it, I thought it was a good gold, and when I went to put the first layer on, I thought I may have messed up horribly. In the end, it all worked out fine, but I did have to use about 5 layers on each gem before I got the end result. So be careful which gold you use. So I went with the color Bright Red from the brand Apple Barrel. Both this and the gold I bought at Walmart. And I have a bit of a funny story with the red paint, because originally I had 2 shades and I didn't know if I wanted to use bright red or flag red. So when I went to test swatch them to see which one I liked better, I guess my flag red was expired or just old, because when I opened the bottle, it just exploded and went everywhere. And it was just like red water at that point, and it smelled horrible. So yeah, I guess paint can expire after so many years. When I was done painting, I took my black paint and I used it to paint a silhouette of a raven on the brooch that will be for the cloak, as well as to highlight the divots I created in the bird charm. So for the belt itself, I had gotten some braided ribbon rope thing from Walmart, and I wanted to use that originally, but it really wasn't thick enough to hold the gems and the charm without sagging down. So I folded it in half. It was still long enough like that, but it still wasn't thick enough. Then I remembered I had a lot of gold fabric from my legendary Chalice cosplay a few years ago, and I wanted to see if I could use that. And sure enough, I could. The fabric was a different shade of gold from the ribbon, but I liked that because it gave it a 2 different dimension sort of look. That way, the rope didn't blend in to the fabric and hide it. Once I had went ahead and cut out my long strip, I then folded that in half, stitched it into a long tube, and then turned it right side out. And as you're going to see, I had a lot of trouble. It wasn't working at first. I eventually got it to go all the way through to be shiny side out, but boy, did that take me about maybe 30 minutes to do it, because I struggled big time. Once I finally flipped it all the way through, I sewed off the end so that it would be closed on both sides, and then I started gluing everything together. I didn't mention this earlier, but I decided not to attach the gold and the red pieces together before painting, because I knew I was going to have a lot of trouble keeping the colors separated. So after the belt was officially made, I went ahead and started gluing everything together. Like I had said, I had made 6 pieces for the belt, but only ended up using 4. It's a good thing I ended up making more than I thought, because I had 2 red pieces that turned out being a little bit wonky and weird, like they had bubbles on it. So those 2 I didn't even have to use. Once I had all the gems glued together, I went ahead and started gluing together my ribbon. Now I glued off the ends of the ribbon first because they frayed very easily. They weren't tied off or anything. Originally I wanted to try the lighter method to where I could melt the ends off, but because of the material that the ribbon was made out of, it had like normal thread woven into it, then this really shiny stuff into it. And when I tried that the first time, let's just say I'm very glad I did this over running water. So I decided to glue the ends with hot glue instead. Then I folded it in half and very carefully started to glue it together. After I had glued the ribbon in half, I proceeded to hand stitch it to the fabric part. Now I didn't record myself doing that part because that took me a few hours because it was very hard to push a needle through the ribbon. But I had wanted to hand stitch it on instead of hot gluing it on because if I were to stitch it on, I'd have more flexibility in it instead of it being hot glue. Plus, I'd run the risk of it peeling off of the shiny fabric. After that, I proceeded to start gluing everything onto the belt itself. I realized that I wasn't going to have a lot of stability if I were to just glue them onto the fabric itself, so I had an idea of gluing strips of cardboard onto the belt first and then gluing the charms onto the cardboard, which worked out really well in the end. I ended up accidentally gluing the bird charm a little too high, so whenever I put it on, it just flipped over. So I carefully ripped it off the cardboard while this hot glue was still semi-warm and just re-glued it lower. And before I was completely done with the belt, I wanted to add one more extra detail. Because I was going to be wearing my cloak, I wanted something that would shine, that would catch the light a little bit on the belt. So I went looking through some stuff and I found my bracelet making kit and I thought, oh, perfect. So I added some little dangly bits in between each of the big gems. This drawing just shows how I fed the thread through the beads, since you couldn't really see it too well on camera. And then I proceeded to try it on without and then with my dress to make sure it wouldn't slip. And in case you were wondering how I attached it in the back, I simply double knotted it. I had thought about Velcro, I had thought about clip straps, but in the end I tested it and just double knotting it in the back worked great for me. It didn't slip when I walked around, it didn't come undone. So knotting it up worked best for me, but you attach your belt however it may be best for you. And then that was it.
And that's everything. It's a little tricky to show the full belt because, well, the middle part's very heavy. But aside from that, it's great. That might cause some issues later, but if I have to add some more reinforcements to it, I will. That might just come at the cost of adding an extra strip of cardboard on either side. I don't know. But yeah, I'm really happy. I really am glad I thought of adding the little jewelry dangly bits right here because I was worried that since I'll be wearing a lot of red because my cloak will be red, my dress is like a darker shade of red, that the belt might disappear into the cloak. And I know it's a little hard to see these on camera when I'm wearing the belt. It's a lot more obvious in person. Camera is just darker. But I wanted to have a little bit of a flashiness to the belt as well. So that. And I'm really happy with how it came out. And I ended up not using all the charms I made for the belt. I had 2 extra charms. I'm glad I didn't have to use them all. These 2 out of all 6 that I made were the wonkiest of the ones. I don't know if you can tell. That one's a little... It's got some imperfections in it. This one has some bubbles that didn't quite work when I was painting. But regardless, I had extras. And I have extras in case one of these breaks. And I still have these 2 for my arms, which I will attach in the next video. And then obviously this will be for my cloak, which I'll also do in the next video. I'm still not sure how I want to attach this yet, so that'll be for later. But I hope this helped you guys make a belt of your own, get inspiration for your own, and yeah, I promise the next video will be the official part 2, not a 1.5, point half, whatever. I promise that'll be the next video. I just gotta wait a month for something to come in the mail for the arm sleeves, and I thought, you know what? I'm just gonna give this out to YouTube to let everyone see and have this little be its own little video of its own, be an official tutorial on its own. So yeah, keep an eye out for the next video. Don't know when that'll be posted, but I hope you enjoyed. And like I said, I am super proud of this. And yeah, bye.